By 1960, Eisenhower's term was going to come to an end.
You like Ike, I like Ike, everybody likes Ike.
Well, everybody except Nikita Khrushchev. The Soviet premier had been dealing with over a decade of overflights and intelligence gathering missions from aircraft such as the RP-57 or the U-2 spy plane, both of which could easily climb to altitudes of well in excess of 60,000 feet. The Soviet PVO, the air defense arm of its air force, had a hard time even getting to those altitudes, let alone trying to intercept their mission. The result would be stunning photographs of bombers in Siberia, or this 1957 shot of the Baikonur Cosmodrome demonstrating the development of Sputnik. That same year, the Soviets would introduce a brand new weapon system to the arsenal of the world that would completely revolutionise the air defence role within its own organisation. Now you could send up a missile to intercept the aircraft instead of another fighter. 1960 shoot-down of Gary France's powers would completely end overflights within a few short years, as they were becoming too risky. Today we step into the vault and look at the SA-2. Welcome to SAM Brief. This is the first of a series of chapters on the SA-2. We'll call this a guide to the guideline. And what you have here is actually a photograph over Vietnam of an aircraft being shot down by the SA-2. It had a huge effect in the field of surface-to-air missile systems in numerous other locations, and we're going to cover that today. The SA-2's got a fairly early setup for surface-to-air missile systems. It was first invented in about 1953 was when it was first conceived, and would be first fielded in 1957. Now, the first recorded shoot-down I can find evidence of was a Chinese-owned system that downed a Taiwanese RB-57. However, in the interests of OPSEC, it was credited to Chinese MiGs, so that the true nature and capability of the SA-2 was not immediately clear. It definitely became official in 1960 with the very infamous Cary Powers shoot-down. What you had there is during Operation Grand Slam, a U-2 was shot down by the SA-2, at least it was credited with that, and the shoot down of that United States U-2 resulted effectively in the ban of overflights of over the USSR. It was extremely damaging to President Eisenhower on his exit, and very much jeopardised the Paris peace talks at the time. And very much set the stage actually for the tension between Khrushchev and Kennedy, interestingly enough. Further use was seen in Cuba. It was given to the Cuban Air Force as a gift from the Soviets during the whole insertion of the Cuban Missile Crisis as well. Numerous Warsaw Pact and Soviet bloc countries, so Hungary, Poland, Czechoslovakia, all that sort of stuff. A litany of Middle Eastern countries. I've listed a few there for you. Vietnam as well is well known, as well as the Balkans, through the association in the Soviet bloc era. It is to this day still copied, produced, updated and used by a lot of nations. You'll see it listed in China as the HQ2, for example. Iran has updated and revised it in themselves in-house, and there's numerous examples of this in other countries as well. So how was it intended to be used? Well, you would have expected it to be used against high-altitude bombers of the time, so B-29s, Peacemakers, the B-36s, and B-47 Hustlers, as well as, of course, things like the U-2 spy plane, the RB-57 spies. These kind of reconnaissance aircraft, they were obviously circled around primarily Moscow, but also other majorly strategic locations in the USSR. It was definitely a replacement for the SA-1. The SA-1 we won't really talk about much beyond this particular episode, but effectively it was the first generation of SAM systems, recognisably from Soviet Russia at the time, and it had a large number of downsides which the SA-2 was set to address. For starters, an SA-1 site is massive. You need these huge concrete pads to hold and arm and launch the missiles from. Once that's in place, that SA-1 site is very visible, of course, to photography at the time and later on satellites. And the SA-2, at least in theory, can be moved once it's placed, so it can be packed up and moved to another location. However, with the SA-1, you were building it as almost like a building. It was permanently there, effectively. The nice thing about the SA-2s being designed to be moved around was that they're also faster to reload. From the information I have on the SA-2 SAMSIM manual, which was written by the author and developer, who is also ex-Hungarian Air Defence, he said that you would expect to have an SA-2 reloaded in around about 12 minutes. So the SA-1 I don't have a number for, but I imagine it was much longer than that. Now I'll hand you over to Figmo. He'll pass the detailed specifications to you and provide you some more useful information.
Hi everyone, and welcome to the first technical breakdown of the SA-2 by Figmo, Ghost co-host. So just a bit of a forewarning, this sort of a section here is going to be highly generalized, as despite the sort of statistics being quite well known for the SA-2 and for the older systems, DCS is pretty freeform with exactly what sort of specs they give their missiles and various weapons. So these specifications here, you'll see a lot of ranging going on, and so you'll see 10.7 meters to 11.2. That's because that's sort of the range that you get. So in between there is where the actual missile within DCS should lie. And additionally, I also want to point out that, again, due to the classified nature of some of these systems, these are not going to be highly accurate. These are just simply best guesses that we can put together through the sources you can see listed at the bottom there. So without further ado, let's get on with it. So the SA-2 technical specifications, I'm not going to insult you by making you, sort of listen to me read through it all, but we'll just go through it nice and rapidly, and we'll crack on then, and I'll hand back to Ghost Dog. So missile length, 10.7 to 11.2 meters. This is where you sort of get the name the flying telephone pole by at least the Royal Air Force. Missile width is 0.5 meters. The missile weight is 4,850 pounds for you Americans and imperial users out there, and for the metric, the ascended crowd, 2,199.92 kilograms. That's just a basic conversion there using a calculator. Missile speed is Mach 4 to Mach 4.5. Now it's worth noting that I've seen certain sources saying slightly slower, but Mach 3.8 to Mach 3.5, but the ones listed at the bottom there all say Mach 4 to Mach 4.5, so I've gone with that ranging, as these seem to be pretty good sourcing. The warhead radius, so the warhead kill radius is 65 meters. It's absolutely ridiculously large warhead, very scary, and even though the missile itself isn't massively accurate, you can see how with a radius like that, you're going to knock some stuff out the sky pretty quickly. Right, okay, finally let's go over these sort of radars in general. The tracking and fire control radar for the SA-2 found in DCS is the Fansong F, which operates in the E and F band. And an interesting bit of trivia here that you might not know is that it can track 6 targets simultaneously, but can only guide missiles onto one. And the guidance for the V750 missile is command guidance. And finally, the search acquisition radar is called the Spoon Rest. Moving on. The capabilities, these are defined as sort of a loose set of rules that we can abide by to understand what the system is capable of. So in this particular one here, you can see for the SA2, but this format will be the same for all of the ones that I break down. So the maximum range of the SA2, this isn't maximum sort of effective range, this is exactly how far it will fly out and then fall out the sky, is 35 kilometers or 21.7 miles. The minimum range, now here is where we sort of see a bit of disparagence between figures. So it's 7 to 9 kilometers or 4.3 to 5.5 miles. It's actually quite far. It's it's not a particularly short range system, and it's a very old system. So this is sort of what we can expect with some of the older missiles. Now that doesn't mean that you should get within 4.3 to 5.5 miles, as if the IADS is set up correctly, there'll be other systems covering that sort of range gap there, which we will go over at some other points in this particular Threat the Week sort of scenario, SAM Brief series. The maximum altitude for the SA-2, the V750 missile, is 30,000 meters or 98,480 feet. Again, these are just simply rounded up, rounded down conversions here. Now, that's a lot of altitude to reference the meme. And this is why it was able to shoot. Well, the SA-2 is credited with the shoot down of several altitude reconnaissance aircraft, as well as, of course, stuff like F-4 Phantoms in Vietnam. It proved itself against both small maneuvering targets and fast high-flying targets. The minimum altitude for the SA-2 found in DCS is 100 meters or 330 feet. Again, rough rounding up. Underneath this altitude, the ground clutter from the ground for the radar, it was unable to sift through it and will not be able to engage you effectively. And I've put in the effective altitude here, so I give you an idea of what sort of altitude this thing could accurately hit a maneuvering target up to. So it's 27,000 meters or 88,500 feet. I'm going to round off by saying thank you again for listening to this segment. I hope to do many more, and I'm going to pass you back off to Ghost Dog. Thank you very much.
Okay, thanks Figmo, and we're now going to push over to what the inside of a SAM cabin looks like. So we're going to load up SamSim and show you the internals of the SA-2. Okay, welcome to the cabin. We have here the I-66 and the I-64 sets. These are basically power, guidance, missile control, fusing, safeties for the operator, all that sort of stuff. So we're going to run those now. We'll start the surf radar and we'll start the attack radar. So they're both on and operation. Got the antenna turned on. You can turn it off very quickly with this if you suspect you've been attacked by an anti-radiation missile, which we don't have to deal with in this particular scenario. Or live fire as well. Let's go to the VCO, the search radar scope. We see there we have contacts east 090, 2 sets. And I'm going to guess 50, 100, about 130, 140 miles. Yeah, kilometers rather. So we'll put the range ticker all the way out to the bottom here, to the end here. And we'll send it all the way out to this. Just getting the edge of a hit there on the radar already, which is handy. It's a very small hit, very hard to see there, it was only 3 dots. But we have something at least. So as you can see, as you get further and further away, it becomes harder to lock up. That's a lucky hit for us. And as a result, as you can see, we're having a real hard time maintaining lock because it's such a small target. We have a little trick up our sleeve. We can go to a narrow beam mode. What you can see there now is what we're effectively doing is zooming in on the contact, giving ourselves a more accurate range fix. We'll get the lead. There we go. So we've accurately locked up the enemy contact. So it's a very narrow beam. Now, as we go to higher and higher magnification levels like this, it becomes harder for the system to catch the lock and actually guide the missile. Remember, the missile has still got to guide over this area here, so it becomes actually harder and harder for the missile to accurately get good guidance. So once it gets to the point where, what will eventually happen is this will widen out to the point where it almost fills the entire screen, I'd expect. And once it starts doing that, we're going to then expand back out to the older field of view system, because that's just way too much data. So we've got plenty of time before we have to start warming up the missiles. We're just maintaining a lock and keeping ourselves ready to go. Just focused in on this one contact if I do this mode, which is not very helpful if I'm trying to find other things. I can also put the range marker on the right side if I prefer. To be honest, I prefer it on the left side. It just seems to make more sense for me. I tend not to find it gets stuck in the clutter as much. We have a lock. We're waiting on range parameters to be accepted. And we'll start warming up the gyros about now. Similarly, let's synchronize the gyros. We have one active light, two active lights, three active lights, waiting for the greens. Once that happens, we will go to a wide view. We should be getting good locks by now, I would think. A-firm. Valid locks, valid shots. We just need to wait for the range ticker to show up into this area down here. Okay, we're fairly close to the ground, so we're going to go to the short range mode because height is below 5. And ready to fire, fire one. So as you can see there, the missile is holding, jumping all the way down to the center, because if it did that, it'd dump itself into the ground. That's how low these guys are flying. We're going to bring ourselves to the expanded mode. Get the most accurate impression of image. Now we can only lock one contact at a time, so we're just going to have to hold onto this guy until we've lost track of the missile. It hasn't quite made it. Okay, so then we'll have to fire again. We'll use the half lead method because we won't actually. We'll fire again. The half lead method isn't going to work. We're too low to the ground. So the missile gets launched high into the air. It's going to come down on top of them now that they're moving away from that ground clutter. Hopefully that will stop the missile from taking the impact. Those you might have saw kind of a cloud there. That's a chaff cloud. Either that or it's ground clutter. Either way, the fighter is now trying its best to defeat my missile. I don't think it's going to get a chance though. Missile 2 ready to self-instruct. No hit. Oh, helps if you turn the missile onto the correct radar guided locking system. That would work fairly well for us last time. Let's switch to it again. While that's happening, let's spool up the next set of gyros. That takes about 30 seconds. Because we need to get his buddy, assuming they decide to continue the attack. Switching to the next set of commands, we're ready for the command guidance to fire or to detonate. This missile's got a good shot of hitting. Splash 1. No time to celebrate, we've got to move to the next contact. Ready to fire in all aspects. Rocket firing motor. Missile away. This is going to be a short hit. I'm ready to command detonate. I'm going to send a second one in the air now. Splash 1. We can see bits of aircraft getting distributed across the area. A massive explosion. And there won't be much left of that aircraft now. Let's check the tracks here. That's the only track that's making its way in. All the other ones have left and turned around and gone home. I'd say that's been a successful operation. Let's take it back to DCS World to see how you would place such a system to make sure that it's as deadly as this one can be. Okay, so here we have the area of Syria. We're going to take off from this airbase, Kiryat Shmona, which I don't think is actually Israeli held, but we're going to use it as a close by airbase. We'll use that for this engagement zone, which I'll be using for quite a lot of the early part of this series to demonstrate the various systems. As we zoom out again, we can see I've placed a SAM site and an EWR site very close to the southern edge of the town of Damascus. This would be a fairly well strategically placed position because it also has good overwatch for the Damascus airbase. And it'll be funny you mention that because the reason why I knew how to place this here is because I actually found it in Google Earth. So we'll have a look at that shortly. The rings here represent the search radius of the EWR site. We're using a pair of P19 flat face search radars because unfortunately, as of time of writing, the mission makers at DCS have not seen fit to put down a P12 or P18 spin rest. So we're going to use that as our stand-in for a search radar. I'm afraid you just have to squint a bit harder. Down the bottom here we have our SAM site. I'll explain what I've got placed and why in very short order. But we'll just compare this to the actual thing first. And we can see we're right next to that very same road. And as we zoom in again, you can see very clearly we've got the same location, very close, or a very close representation of it. The key here that was my identification ability there is the 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5 and a 6 bunker down here, a string of bunkers all crested out to the east, which does match the imagery from DCS quite perfectly. We also have the classic arrangement of an SA-2 battery in a hexagon, as you can see here very clearly, with the fan song square bang in the middle, and that is definitely a fan song. You can tell by the boxy shape that it's got that is very clearly a fan song, no doubt about it. Underneath the bunkers, these gaps here are holes to access a bunker, and this would be where you'd find the command and control vehicles, as well as things like the power generators and so on for the fan song and the associated equipment. So the controllers and everything will be sitting underneath their fan song, providing instruction to these SAM sites and providing launch instructions. I also took the liberty of placing in another spoon-rest search radar of its own, just in case the EWR site doesn't pass the data along as it should. I think it will, but I don't exactly know how the DCS mission editor handles these things, so I'm not taking the chance. And then last but not least, I've also taken the liberty of placing a total of 4 Shilkas, one at the far south down here, because I figured that would be a pretty good location to put one. If I was a battery commander, I'd have one overlooking the south. I had another one with a clear field of fire all the way through these heights at the bottom here. So I thought this might be a guard post, or it might be an artillery post, an anti-aircraft artillery post. I couldn't be sure what this was, so I've put a Shilka there and called it a draw there. And we have a few in placed positions here, and here, or they look like in placed positions to me anyway, with access roads for presumably ammo loaders and crew. So I've taken the liberty of assuming these 2 ZU-23s, these look like trucks, but that might be a AAA gun at the back. I figured if this was a wartime foot in those time though, those would be beefed up to be Shilkas, so I put Shilkas here and here, just to give the SA-2 a fighting chance. As we can also see here, I'm going to cut back to the footage for DCS. And as we zoom out here, we can see to the northwest an EWR site that I placed on top of a hill, and that there actually corresponds rather cleverly with an actual real world one as well. So when we switch back to Google Maps again, we just zoom out and in again. We have, so we were here before. You see the ridge line here that we were talking about. That is that's the SAM site that we were looking at before. I'm just going to travel to the northwest, and you can see this gap on the ridge line here. And this is even clearer, maybe just because of the difference of a few thousand feet, or maybe because these are huge radars that they put up here. But those are very clearly a search radar of some description. It's hard for me to identify them. It may be a square pair, but once again, because we're going to talk about the square pair later on with the SA-5, I'm going to just call it a draw and put a pair of P19 search radars again, the spoon rest, which we'll cover in a little bit more detail in the next episode as well. And we can see that represented by the DCS mission editor pretty much here. I'd like to think I've done a fairly faithful representation of that. Now as we zoom in, we also have a green and a yellow and a red circle. The red circle represents Shilka radius, yellow for the range of which the Shilkas can pick me up. And I think the green range, if I remember rightly, is the minimum engagement range that the SAMs can operate on. So if once we're inside that, they're very unlikely to be able to successfully engage me. So here's the flight plan. We're going to take my A4, which is sitting right here in Kiryat Shmona. We're going to take off out to the we're going to take off runway 3 and we're going to depart east. And as we cross these hills, I'm expecting to get lit up by the search radar. So we'll have the RWR turned on there so you can see what that looks like. as I cross the ridgeline, I'm expecting then to be immediately acquired, if not engaged outright, by the Fansong system. Once I get engaged, we'll dodge a few missiles, hopefully 6, and I'll demonstrate a few different techniques. We'll try, first of all, kinetic defeat, where we just outpace the missiles. We'll then try the same, but we'll augment that with chaff and flare, and hopefully we'll see just how resistant these flares, the system is, particularly to chaff, because obviously it's a radar-guided system. Yep. Then, as we get to the last steps here, I am hoping I'll be able to dive for the deck and grab this ridge, and use that to defeat the missiles with terrain masking, which should be a much more effective means, because you can never shoot through a mountain range. From there, we'll obviously be pretty low at that point, so I'm expecting to then have a pop-up attack. This area here, just at the edge of the attack ring, this ridge here looks like a pretty good pop-up point. It's what? About a mile, yeah, that makes sense. About a mile off the thing, so I'll pop up. I'll pop up slightly to the northeast. I'll look over to the right, hopefully, roll in, engage, and I'll be able to then pass out to the south, and then out to the south away from the Shilkas. And once I'm past this road here, I can turn to the west and leave the place better, in my opinion, than I found it. Alright everybody, this is the A4 Skyhawk by the Hogget community. We're in Syria, or more accurately we're in Israel, about to go into Syria, and we've got ourselves 6 Rockeyes and a 400-gallon drop tank. Get the jet ready to run. Alright, Wolf 1-1 ready to take off. We're going to start running up the throttles now. I've got the flaps and gear all set. And let's get this party started. Right, run the nav computer now. And gear up. And flaps up. Next thing we're going to do is I'm going to turn on the RWR, and you're going to know why I've got the RWR on, because you'll hear it. Because remember, this current APR 25 does not have a display. This is how they were used at first. This is radar homing and warning gear, not radar warning receivers. And you have the result there. That noise that you're hearing right now, that buzzing noise, that is my alert to let me know that my RWR is turned on, is working, and is currently scanning for any kind of noise on the radar any kind of radar frequency that would potentially be harmful to me. We're going to turn off the lights. We're now fenced in. I've got my bombs armed, set, and ready to go. I just need the master arm. We're going to turn on we're going to arm the bombs with the nose and tail settings as well. Now as I crest over here, you're going to hear the radars suddenly become active, because they can detect all the way out here. There they are. That's the P19 flat face, which we're using as a stand-in for the spin rest. You'd hear the same thing. All that this current RWR can tell is the difference between a search radar, a fire control radar, and a hard lock, a spike, which is usually what you'll get once you have once you've been fired upon. updated bearing, range and altitude information and speed are being passed every minute that I'm in the air to the fan song operator, the SA-2 Battery commander for the plot. And that information is constantly being linked up and passed by radio, by electronic means, by just by phone lines, effectively, radio lines, physical ground wires. And they've given me enough information now for the fan song operator to find me, and he's now tracking me. He's now waiting for a missile solution, so he's waiting for me to pop into range of the missile operator, and that is based on my speed and the enemy and the target speed. We're going to continue this climb. I want to get as much altitude as I possibly can, because for every 1,000 foot that I'm in the air, that's another 1,000 foot that SAM has to fight, and it's only got a certain amount of fuel, whereas compared to it, I have loads more. When it launches, you'll see 2 stages of smoke. You'll see the first big heavy plume of smoke, and that's the solid fuel. I believe it may even be black powder on some of the old S-75s. Shooting the missile clear of the launch rail, and then the liquid oxygen burners will kick in, and you'll see a plume of a slightly more grey smoke. We have the platform on my nose. You can see the. Let's see if I can get the mouse here. You can see it right there, and there's the first missile in the air. Actually, not received a launch warning yet. That's interesting. That's why. So the warning gear, the warning gear wasn't turned on, that was my fault. That's why you always must look for SAM launches as well. And it's coming down to meet me, so I'm going to have to bring the nose high. Very severe action. But you can see it's now flying right past me. It's going to explode, probably somewhere behind me now. I don't have time to worry about that one though. There's the second one in the air. We're now rolling the nose down. Where is it? There it is. It can't keep up, it's going to go behind me again. There it is. Another SAM launch, same location. There's an Easter egg for you guys. Alright, defensive, 2 more SAMs coming towards me hard. I'm going to split S down. Flares are coming out. There's the first one launched. I'm now focused on the second one. It's also going to go past me. And you've even broken lock. The chaffs have done their job. It cost me 10 chaff to do. But 10 chaff's cheaper than a new aircraft, a new pilot, and that missile's been command detonated. Battery commander's already realised that's going nowhere. There's the next missile launch. This one's closer. We've got this valley right below us, so let's use it. You hear a second where it went blind like that? That's not that it's broken lock. That's me losing the. That's my antenna breaking the field of view. This time, it's definitely broken lock, and I saw that missile being command detonated, and I'm sure I saw a second missile. But we're going to pop up and see if anything else is there. Doesn't look like it. So let's roll back in low. I'm going to use that mountain there as the pull-up point, just the same as before. There's that compound. That's my marker. That's my call to be on the bomb run now. So guns are on. Don't want them. I want rocket. I want my bombs ready. Wolf 1-1. Switches hot. Weapons hot. Bombs hot. Nose tail fuse armed. In the pop. Rolling in. Acquisition by Shilkas. That's not good. Weapons away. Flares off. Direct hit. That's good. That's what we want. All 6 launchers. Truck. I'm sure the fan song's been hit as well. Let's look at the high score. That's numerous launchers popping off. It doesn't matter if I got the radar now. All the launchers are out of commission. There it is. SNR 75 Val. Fan song's down. Mission accomplished. Okay, so here's how we did with the A4 launch. Unfortunately, Figmo has been having some technical problems, so I'm going to have to debrief myself. Future versions of this will have Figmo reviewing the content just to make it a little bit more independent. But I'm pretty sure we can go through kind of how things went. We're going to speed things up a bit just at first, just so you can watch it raw. And you can see the moment where I step into the boundary. Sam's already started coming inbound. So the biggest thing I want to do there, really, to be perfectly honest with you, actually would be to make sure I have my RWR turned on properly. I hope you learned that one from me at least. You can see that indeed the other missile was command detonated, so we have had all 6 of those missiles fired. Now the TAC view is a little bit screwed up, so you saw the result. My pop-up on TAC view has me dropping on dust, but you know how that went. So let's break down the evasion part a little bit more clearly. So the first event was, you'll recall that I actually tracked the missile shot visually. That was important because if I hadn't seen the missile launch coming up in the air, I would never have done anything about it, and that's definitely not good. The first thing I do as soon as I see the missile is I start bringing the nose down to get speed. And unfortunately the TAC view is a little screwed up for this, but you can get the idea from there. You see the Mach number increasing, or holding steady rather, because now what you can see is me now lifting the jet up. Now the TAC view is a bit screwed up, it keeps kind of being a bit multi-point, but you see me pulling up way above what the SA-2 can do, and we saw the result of that earlier. And then immediately pulled back down low. And you can see that this missile just wasn't able to keep up even though it tried, and it just went right past me. SAM operator then decides to throw another few out, so there's one coming towards me, and it immediately follows it up with a second one almost practically. You'll notice that every time I'm putting the SAM on my left or my right wing so that I can look at the canopy on the left, but I'm also forcing it to start having to curve, which first of all makes it bleed its energy, but also makes it have to cover a longer distance. And then just at the last minute I'll pull a hard split S around, forcing it to double back on itself, which is a waste of its own kinetic energy capability. At this point in time I was also popping chaff and flare like a madman, and this one went stupid against the flares and was no longer effective. It detonated all by itself. Gone. It has 2 shots left. It fires, and I'm quite low on the ground there, so all I can really do now is jump for terrain. I can't really use altitude to my advantage anymore, so I start diving for the deck. And unfortunately it's not very well travelled here, but that missile went stupid thanks to the ground. Now I'm using the pop-up there with the intention that I can observe to see if he's going to give me another shot, because if he does I can just go back down the hill and give it another go evading, but this is the point where I realised that, yeah, it's pretty likely that all the missiles have been counted off. And now we're going into low altitude egress. We're really going for it now. As I said, you're going to have to squint hard at this moment because you saw the result when you saw the flight, but for whatever reason it decided that during tac view to record me being about 1.5 miles short. So there's the pull up. It's a fairly steep pull up because I need to make sure that the Shilkas can't suddenly elevate high enough to catch me. Pull down low again, roll out wings level, and you saw the result of the bottom tack. A full stick of Maroccais across the target area, and lots and lots of cluster munitions just sprinkled liberally across the enemy formation. We saw the results in the tape. I hope that gives you some idea of what you can do. Now, a few things I might have done differently if I'd had my Rathers. First of all, I didn't want to demonstrate. I did the high altitude ingress in the first place to demonstrate what it's like to be engaged by the SAMs. There is no need whatsoever for me to be all wheeling and dealing and dodging all 6 missiles. I could have just stayed low from the moment and just used the terrain to my advantage. It's not very good terrain, it's pretty low. But as we saw during the SAM demonstration, the lower I am to the ground, the harder it is for the operator for me to work. Staying high really just plays into the strengths of this SA-2 and the weaknesses of my A4. This pop-up here was really just to see if I could goad it into a final attack, just to make sure I'd A, dropped all the SAMs out, and B, one last possible chance to evade a missile to demonstrate. In reality, I could have stayed low here and just kept that. This pop-up here is completely unnecessary. This pop-up could have done a little bit later and not been as strenuous, but I wanted to bring it right down, nice and tight and fast, right over it before the Shilkas could acquire me quickly. And we saw that they didn't really acquire me until I was straight and level on the bomb drop. Now, flying straight and level like this is a risk. Okay, that is just the reality of bombing like this. The moment you fly in a straight line like that perfectly predictably, the Shilkas should have just blatted me right out of the sky, but they didn't. So the result was him and his buddies ate it. That's the result. Let's flip over to the F-16 briefing and see what we can do to avoid getting that close in the future. Okay, so let's cut to the F-16 attempt. Much the same setup. I'm giving myself a little more distance to fly this time, so we're going to take off from Ramat David airbase. I'm giving myself a little bit more time because I've got harms, which first of all have longer range in the first place, and second of all I need a bit more time to explain what you're going to see in front of you and how it's going to work. So that should hopefully give me enough time to get the aircraft into the air, take off, and get this party started. The target is the same target description. I'm not expecting to go up against the Shilkas. My primary objective will be to neutralise the Fansong itself, and as a bonus, if I still have a harm on the rail, I might try to take out one of the Shilkas. We'll see. Okay, so rolling out on the F-16. We're just about to join runway 29, and once we get rolling here, it'll be a departure out to the east, so we'll take a left turn to depart the airspace. Just be a rolling takeoff, so let's just get this party going. And rotate. And gear up. Right. We'll keep this rate of time climb going. moving through as we rotate through 500 knots. We're already way faster than our old A4 was. Or do our spikes for the search radar already? Both of them. And we're going to do a much higher altitude climb now. We're already passed through 8,000 feet. We want to be nice and high, up above 30,000 feet, so these harms can get as much range as possible for their attack. Speaking of which, we're going to go hit the air to ground mode, turn them on, and we're going to get them selected on the weapons panel here. The harm has 4 tables by default. So I'm just going to flip through the tables until I get to table number 3, where we have the SA-2, and I plan on just removing as we continue that climb. And as we crack on the autopilot there, I'm just going to select the panels, and we're going to deselect SA3s, search radars, SA6s, and SA13s. We're only interested in SA2s, so that's what will show up on the radar, on the harm targeting sensor rather. We'll keep this turn going. And already you can tell that the biggest thing that we've really got going for us now is awareness, situational awareness. We've got the performance to get up high, and I know we're burning through fuel to do it, but really to keep the speed up and keep the performance up. Once we go to internal fuel only, we'll punch the tanks. We've only got another few £100 to go, so I'm going to allow the climb, and we'll get back to you once we're settled at 30,000 feet. Okay, we're at 30,000 feet. We're going to punch the tanks now. We're going to come out the burner. Tanks are clean. Good separation is confirmed. Alright, we're waiting for the SA-2 to pop up on radar, and there it is already. So, looking at the SA-2, it's the 2 signifies it's an SA-2, and the attack, the A means attack, quite simply, so we know it's the attack radar that's come up. The next option would be the tracking radar, and we're just about to come up to its lethal point, so I'm going to now bring the nose about, and basically I'm just going to try and get the bore sight as close to the centre of the cross as possible. There it is. And it's this one on the left here that's going to pop off. Once you cross into that threat ring, that's when we can expect reasonably to be engaged. We're going to select steer 2, because that is actually the threat area. Steer 2 selected. And we can see the box there pretty much shows what we see here. And there's the 2A for the attack radar. It's 30 miles out, that's more than enough for this harm, so we call first Magnum. Magnum SA-2. And we're going to turn off to the right here. And now I'm fighting a lot of weight on one wing. So all I've done is I've just turned myself to the side. I'm going to pop in a little left roll. So I just popped in a little left trim. And we see that harm speeding off towards the target, which is somewhere about there, right in the centre of my HSD. Or my hammocks rather. We built up a lot of speed now, so we can come out the burn. Now just to give it extra problems, we're then going to turn back into the target. There it is. Just waiting for the SA-2 to show up on the harm tracking system. There it is. There it is. Weapon flies ready. It's now at tracking radar. So that hard lock, he spiked us, that's an SA, that's a harm out, and you saw it just bunt there to the right. That's it now, taking the guidance information I've given it. And there's the missile launch. Time to start fighting the missiles. Now SA-2s are faster than harms, so we're going to start pouring on the speed. We're now Cat 1 now, because we've got rid of both our missiles, and there's the two missiles coming outbound. So we're going to come up. We see the missiles trying to get up here. So we're going to now descend down. And SA-2's gone silent, looks like the first harms is hit. Second one's guiding in, and second impact. One of them has killed the harm. One of them has done great harm. Okay, bad puns aside, as you can see I've got nowhere near the enemy, comparatively speaking. I'm only 7 miles, I didn't even need to get that close. I could have turned away the moment I fired the first one. But that there is the engagement capability of the harm and the F-16, even in its current incarnation where we don't have the harm targeting sensor or pre-planned targeting information. We're already miles more effective. I get to laugh with impunity over the top of this airbase. Let's take that one apart in the debriefing. I'm sure it'll be a much quicker debrief. So as you can see, an F-16 Acme is a little bit less interesting, unfortunately. You're flying straight and level up until the point you acquire your target, and your AGM-68, correction, your AGM-88 just comes streaking in. Now, at this point in time, I could have just turned around and gone home. I decided to get a bit closer, A, to launch the second missile for practice for you and me, and B, to hopefully see if I could get anything to shoot at me. So I could have just turned around and gone home at this point, but I decided to hang around, A, to confirm the hit, and B, to shot fire the second harm, and C, basically I wanted to make sure that a couple of missiles went my way to see if I could get them to get some dodging going on. And we can see that missile closing the distance quite rapidly at a rate of about 1.3 Mach, but remember, Figmo's technical spec Mach 4 to 4.5, so an SA-2's missiles are about 4 times faster than ours, so firing at max range isn't a scary idea. You still need to treat the SAM system seriously while this missile is en route. It also loses a lot of its energy in the last stages as it gets through the dense part of the atmosphere and towards the end of its range. And there was the two the SAMs that went launched. We saw the missile reaction. However, at this point in time, it's already too late. If it's locked onto that, it's going after me, and result is a very, very dead SAM system, represented in the picture by a big bird, which we'll get to much later down the line, but clearly a fan song. And those missiles are immediately command detonated. A nice little aspect of the harm is that it continues to fly on in towards the target area, looking for any more SA-2s, and it will hold a lock on the last known position it had. It didn't actually hit the Shilka, it landed short of the fan song, but that's the difference of inertial navigation versus a physical lock. And that's the result. As you see, we're much, much further away and comparably safe. Right, well, that's all we have time for on this month episode. The SA-2 is about as done as I can make it at the moment, but by all means leave extra comments, questions and further information further down. Any mistakes or missteps are purely my own. I'd like to thank Figmo for providing our technical section, and once his computer is no longer a potato, he'll be doing our TacView section following forward. I'd like to thank Jive Turkey, Tactical Pascal, both for the inspiration in the show format, for both the In Harm's Way series and the Sub-Brief series. And if you haven't gone check those out, what are you doing with your life? Go sort that out right now. Eagle Dynamics, of course, have made a fantastic simulator with DCS World. Hind when, F-16 when, completed anyway, and of course Apache when. Looking forward to that next year. And SAM simulators, not just fantastic as a demonstration of the operator's end of the thing and what they're looking at through their scopes. The actual manuals and documentation themselves are incredibly detailed, and even if you have no interest whatsoever in making SAM simulator work and playing with it on your computer, if you're interested in surface-to-air missile systems, the ones that are featured in the simulator are very well documented by the author of that piece of work. Last but not least, TacView. I still can't believe that's done by one guy. It's a fantastic product, and if you run Falcon BMS or DCS or any decent flight simulator that's got combat basis in it, get TacView installed. It's worth every penny that you pay for it. You really do get what you pay for it. In terms of credits, I also have to give credit to Eric Matthias at soundimage.org for the Move It Out intro that I'm using as part of my introduction music. I'll be doing that every time I have that introduction there. And lastly, the obligatory disclaimer that the featured content is intended for entertainment purposes only, and the authors do not intend for this to be used academically. However, considerable effort has been placed in providing sources and references where available. Neither the author nor his guests, to the best of their knowledge, accessed or disseminated any classified data, tactics, or sources. Other than that, I hope you guys really enjoy this series, and I hope you can bear with my awful editing skills, and let's see if they develop over the course of the next who knows how many episodes. Thank you very much, and we'll see you soon.